Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. If you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today's tutorial is one of my personal favorites. We're making a flirty and feminine crochet tank top with a front tie and open front detail. It is lightweight, stylish, and pairs perfectly with your favorite bralette or any lace for layering. Now, you'll probably already know the drill, but just in case you're new here, welcome. I share modern crochet patterns and tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday, so tell a friend, tap the bell, and subscribe so you never miss an upload. And if you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to support the channel and help keep these tutorials free. So without further ado, here's how to make your own front tie crochet tank. For this project, any category 3 yarn will work, but I used a total of 90 grams of yarn. That's 325 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us, on average, how many hours of sleep you get a day. Typically for me, about 7 hours. Details for the giveaway down below. We're all using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 3 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook, and we're all going to start by making a chain 1 no matter what size we're making, because we're starting with the point of our cup. Now that we all have that chain 1, we're going to block off that chain and then do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 is our turning chain. Into that first chain that we made, or the third chain from our hook, we're all going to do an increase of 5 half double crochets. So all it is 5 half double crochets into that first chain. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first chain that we made, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. That is our first half double. We need a total of 5. So again, yarn over into that same first chain with a second, same first chain with a third, same first chain with a fourth, and same first chain with a 5th half double crochet, and we have all just completed our first row. Now to get started on our row 2, we're all going to start with an increase of 4 half doubles, so start that with a chain 2 and flip. That chain 2 is our turning chain, and into the last chain from our previous row, we're going to insert with 4 half double crochets. So we're going to insert with 1 half double, same with a second, same with a third, and same with a 4th half double crochet. Now we're going to do our first Suzette stitch. Now our Suzette stitch is just going to be 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet into that same stitch. So all we're going to do is skip that following stitch, and into the next we're going to insert starting with 1 single into that same stitch, starting with 1 double crochet. Now we should all have 2 stitches left, so what we're going to do is skip 1 stitch and into the last insert with just 1 half double crochet to close off the end of the row. Now since we all should have just completed our row 2, we should all have a total of 7 stitches. Now I do want to make sure that we are all inserting a stitch marker into the beginning of this row, and this is going to indicate where the top of our cup is going to be. So we have all just completed our first 2 rows. Now let's get started on our third. We're all going to start with a chain 2 and flip. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now whenever we're starting our Suzette stitch row off with an increase, we're going to start with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, into that first stitch from our previous row with 1 half double, same first stitch with a second, same with a third, and same with a fourth. And now we're going to Suzette stitch, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left at the end of the row. So what we're going to do is skip that following stitch. Into that following, we're going to insert with 1 single and 1 double crochet. Now, as a really quick tip, each of our Suzette stitch sets will be worked into our previous Suzette stitches single crochet to get the texture that we want. So taking a look at our previous Suzette stitch set, we are going to skip that following stitch, and we can all tell that that is a double crochet because it's a little bit taller than the next. So we're going to skip one into that next with a single and a double crochet. Now we should all have 4 stitches left, so we're going to skip 1 stitch and into the next insert with another Suzette stitch set. Now after every Suzette stitch set, we always want to skip that following stitch unless stated otherwise, because that double crochet technically counts as that stitch. So we're going to skip one into the next with a single and also with a double crochet. Now we're at the end of our row 3 and we should all have 2 stitches left. Now we're going to close off every odd number row with an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over into that last stitch from a previous row. So we're skipping that second to last, into that last with 1 half double, into that same last stitch with a second, same last stitch with a third half double crochet. Now we have all just completed our row 3 and we should have a total of 11 stitches. Now it is going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, so let's just get those 2 started together. So to get started on our row 4, chain 2 and flip. Now to get started on our row 4, we're going to start with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over into that first stitch with 1, same first stitch with a second, same first stitch with a third, same first stitch with a 4th half double crochet. Now we're going to Suzette stitch till we have 2 stitches left. So skip 1 stitch into the next, start with 1 single and 1 double crochet. Again, we're going to skip that following stitch into the next with a single and a double and continue on with this until we have 2 stitches left. Now our row 4 is nearly complete. We should all have 2 stitches left, and at the end of every even number row, we're going to close it off with just 1 half double crochet. So starting with the yarn over, into that last stitch from our previous row, so we are skipping over that second to last, we're going to insert with 1 half double crochet. Now to get started on our odd number row, we're going to chain 2 and flip. So to start every odd number row, we're going to start with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch into the next with our first Suzette stitch set, so just a single and a double crochet. Then from here, continue to do our Suzette stitches until we have 2 stitches left. We made our way down with our row 5. Now at the end of our row 5, since this is the top of our piece, we always want to close it off with an increase, and closing it off is always going to be an increase of 3 half double crochets, because just as a really quick tip, every row needs to end on an odd number. So into that last stitch, we're going to insert with 1, with 2, and with 3 half double crochets. Now all together, we should have a total of 5 rows. Now, this last row that we have should have a total of 17 stitches. And now from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until the bottom of our cup, so opposite from where our stitch marker is, can reach our underbust. So making sure that we're placing the tail end at the center of our chest at mid-bust, we're just going to continue on with this until this can reach our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would lay. I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number row, so that we'll be along the top just like this, and then we can continue on with the rest of our piece from there. We are back. We have just completed the height of our cup. I have a total of 9 rows. This width is just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, and this increase height right here is just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Now, before we get started on the rest of the width of our cup, we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker at the beginning of our last row, just so we know where the increase is along the bottom ends. Now, the following row is actually going to be done the same way that we've been doing the even number rows for this last section. So what we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work. Started with an increase of 4 half double crochets, and Suzette stitch all the way down. When we have 2 stitches left, simply close it off with 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. Then I'll meet you guys back. So the first row for the cup width is completed. Now to get started on the following row, we're all going to chain 1 and flip. Now since this increased portion already reaches at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would sit, we aren't going to do any more increases along the bottom. We're just going to start with our Suzette stitches all the way up, but we are still increasing along the top of our piece. So just to do the first one together, into that first stitch, insert with 1 single. Also with 1 double crochet, skip a stitch into the next, another single and a double. Then continue on until we have 2 stitches left. Now we have made our way all the way up to the top, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now we're going to close off the row with an increase of 3 half doubles, so yarn over. Skip that following stitch and into the next, which should be our last, insert with 1. Same last stitch with a second. Same last stitch with a third half double crochet. Now from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we now have a piece that can reach from mid-chest all the way over to mid-collarbone, so roughly where a bra strap or a tank top strap would lay. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row, so that we'll be along the bottom now. Then we can do our underarm together. We have just completed the cup width portion. I have a total of 14 rows. My width is now just about 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and my increase height now is just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here is our underarm portion. So what we're going to want to do is put this up to ourselves, making sure that the tail end is at center chest, mid bust, and also making sure that the blunt end of our cup is at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would sit. And then, once all that is into place, we're going to insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top that aligns with the corner of our underarm. So I've inserted my stitch marker into the 10th stitch from the top. That's just about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters. Now we're going to do our following Suzette stitch row. So all we're going to do is chain 1, do our Suzette stitches all the way up, leaving 4 stitches right before our stitch marker stitch. So my first underarm row is nearly complete. I have made my way up, leaving the last 4 stitches before my stitch marker. Now we're going to do a decrease together. So all we're going to do is a decrease of 3 double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, we're going to skip that following stitch. Into that third to last, pull through, second to last, pull through, and last, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our decrease of 3 double crochets. Now our following Suzette stitch row won't have any increases or decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch all the way down, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. So our first 2 underarm rows are complete. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows until this top portion that we have is roughly 1 inch underneath our underarm. So we're just going to do the following row to make sure we all have it down. So since we're all along the bottom, chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch all the way up, leaving the last 4 stitches. Our third underarm row is nearly complete. We've made our way all the way up, leaving the last 4 stitches. Now, just like our previous odd number row, we're going to close it off with a decrease of 3 double crochets. So yarn over, skipping that following stitch into that next, which should be our third to last, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, and into that last, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through the first 4 to get a total of 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Then from here, simply chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch all the way down, closing off the row with 1 half double crochet. So we have just completed our first 4 underarm rows. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows, like I said, once when the top edge of this underarm portion can lay roughly 1 inch underneath our underarm, making sure that things are still sitting where it needs to sit. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row. Then we can work straight into the back together from there. So we are back. We have just completed our underarm portion. I now have a total of 20 rows. Now my width is just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. This top edge does sit just about 1 inch underneath my underarm. Now what we're going to do from here is just Suzette stitch rows, no increases, no decreases, until this can wrap around our side all the way over to the center of our back. So all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch all the way up, closing off the row with a half double crochet, then repeat. So this portion won't have any increases or decreases. I'll meet everyone back once we have a total of even number of rows. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. So we have just completed the width of the back portion of one of our panels. Now I have a total of 42 rows. This width is just about 12 inches or 30 centimeters. Now from here, we are going to make a second panel that is exactly the same, but after the second one is completed, don't cut because then we can work straight into the seam together from there. So now that both of our panels are completed, we're going to seam up the back. So first things first, we're going to place both of our panels on top of each other, then insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then we're going to do our single crochet seam, so finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, with a single crochet. Again, next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back, insert, and single crochet around everything, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we have just completed seaming up our 2 panels together. Now from here, we're going to single crochet along the bottom so we can get started on the length of the bottom of this piece. So we're going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out. So the single crochet seam that we just did is going to be on the inside of our piece. So we're going to take our 2 panels, fold that in, and we're going to flip it upside down so that the bottom of our piece is furthest away from us. Then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of the left side because we want to show the front of the single crochet row. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook. We're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. So our hook is in through that chain space. What we're going to do is find our first side row and we're going to insert with 2 single crochets into there. So find that top loop. We're going to insert with 2 single crochets. And I do like to place my tail ends over my hook so that when I single crochet, these tail ends are going to weave in as we go. So I'm just going to single crochet around everything once. Our tail ends should be in the middle of our single crochet. And into that same top loop, I'm going to insert with another single crochet. Now into our following side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to insert with there with just 1 single crochet. So we're basically just alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row until we're worked into our stitch marker stitch. So again, this is my following side row. I'm going to insert my hook in through that top loop with just 1 single crochet, then into that same top loop with a second single crochet, then into the top of our following side row with just 1 single crochet, and just continue on with this until we are worked into our stitch marker side row. So we've just made our way down until we're worked into our stitch marker side row, alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Now that stitch marker side row should have had 2 single crochets worked into there, and we just want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into that second stitch just so we know where this portion starts and ends. Then continuing on around the back of our piece until we're worked into the following side row right before our following stitch marker stitch. We're going to continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, and the amount of stitches that we have from here to this last side row does need to be in an odd number of stitches. So just to do the next one, the next side row right here is this one. So I'm going to find that top loop, insert with just 1 single crochet. Into that next right here, insert with 2 single crochet. So we're just going to continue on with this until we're worked into the last side row right before our following stitch marker stitch. And remember, from this stitch to this last stitch does need to end in an odd number. So if we end on an even number, go ahead and just add 1 more additional single crochet into that last side row. So we've just made our way across with our single crochets. Now from our first available stitch, so right after that first stitch marker, we should have an odd number of stitches. Now from here, we're going to continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So into that first side row, which is our stitch marker side row right here, I'm going to insert with 2 single crochets. So I did take out my stitch marker. Into that first side row, we're going to insert with 2 singles. So there's 1 into that same top loop with a second. Now we're all going to insert our stitch marker into that first single crochet that we made. Now into our following side row, insert with just 1. And we're going to continue on with alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Then I'll meet you back once we don't have any more side rows left to work into. Alrighty, so our single crochet row is complete. Now once we're worked into that last available side row, we did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now from here we're going to flip our work over and we're going to start with our chain for the length that we'd like for the bottom of this piece to be. So once we try this on, this blunt portion of our single crochet row is going to stay at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would sit. Then we're all going to make an even number chain, the length that we'd like for this to be. Now I wanted my chain to be just about 9 inches or 23 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 44. And we're all going to start by inserting our hook into that first chain space that we made when we got started on the single crochet row, making sure it's not into that first actual single crochet. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to do our moss stitch. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that first chain is going to count as our turning chain. That second chain is going to count as our first stitch for the following row. Then we're all going to start by single crocheting into the 4th chain from our hook. So here's 1, 2, 3 is the chain that we blocked off, and 4. Into that 4th chain, we're going to insert with just 1 single crochet, and that should form our first 2 stitches for the row. That first is that chain space, that second is the top of that single crochet. Then from here, we're going to chain 1, skip a chain into the next, insert with 1 single crochet, and again, we're going to chain 1, skip a chain into that following with 1 single crochet, and we're just going to continue on with this until we all have a total of 4 stitches left. We've made our way down and we should all have 4 chains left. Now we're going to close off the row with a decrease of 3 double crochets. So starting with a chain 1, we're going to skip that following stitch. Then starting with that following chain, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that 3rd to last chain, pull through, into that 2nd to last chain, insert, pull through, then into that last chain as well, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops on our hook, leaving us with 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. Now we should have 2 less stitches than chains that we made, and now we're going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. There's 1, there's 2. Into that second, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we are going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base and flip our work. And for this section, for our even number rows, we aren't going to have any increases or decreases. So whenever we're working our way out towards the outer edge, we're always going to start with a chain 1, skipping that first stitch from our previous row, which should be the top of that decrease. Then into that next stitch, which is our chain space, insert with just 1 single crochet. We should have 2 stitches so far for this row. Then again, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, which should be our chain space, insert with a single. And that's it. We're going to continue on with this until we reach the end of the row. And as a really quick tip, at the end of the row, that last chain space that we should be working into might be a little hard to see. So just make sure that at the end of this row, we have the same amount of stitches as our previous row. Then I'll meet you back. We've just completed our first 2 rows. Now we're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch. So just to get the following row started, we're going to start with a chain 2 and flip. That first chain counts as our turning chain. That second chain will count as a stitch for the following row. Now what we're going to do is skip that first stitch, which should be a single crochet from our previous row. Into that next, which is our chain space, insert with just 1 single crochet. That should give us the first 2 stitches so far for this row. Then from here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, leaving the last 4 stitches. Our first 3 rows are nearly completed. Now we should have all left the last 4 stitches. From here, we're going to chain 1 and end with a decrease of 3 double crochets. So yarn over, skipping over that following stitch, then inserting into that 3rd to last, which should be a chain space, pull through into that 2nd to last, which should be a single crochet, pull through, then into that last, which should be our chain space, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 4, then yarn over, pull through 2. Now from here, we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we've been doing. So count up 1, count up 2. Into that second stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch still doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up that following stitch into the base, flip our work, then do our moss stitches all the way down. So simply start with a chain 1, skip a stitch into the next with a single crochet, then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. We have just completed our first 4 rows. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 4 rows until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch, then I'll meet you back. We are back and we have just worked into our first stitch marker stitch. Now what we're going to do from here is our regular moss stitch rows, no increases, no decreases, making our way all the way around until we're worked into the stitch right before our following stitch marker stitch. So just to get that started, the following row will be done the same way as our previous odd number rows. So simply work our way up to the following row, start with a chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, making our way all the way down, then I'll meet you back at the end of that following row. So that following moss stitch row is complete. Now just to get started on the following row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, skip that first stitch, single crochet into the next. So starting it off the same way as we normally would, making our way all the way down, then I'll meet you back to show you how we're going to connect it into the base. We've just made our way back up with our following moss stitch row. We have made our way all the way up, so we should end up with the same amount of stitches as our previous row. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now since this moss stitch row is shorter than the increases that we were doing, we're simply going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Pretty simple. And now this row is connected. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and repeat. And like I said, we're going to continue to repeat those 2 previous rows with no increases, no decreases, making our way all the way around. Then I'll meet you back when we're worked into the stitch right before our following stitch marker stitch. So I've just made my way all the way around with my moss stitch rows. We should have all worked into the stitch right before our following stitch marker stitch. We should have all ended along the bottom. Now we're going to do the increase portion of our moss stitch. Now since we're all along the bottom, we're going to start off our moss stitch the same way that we normally would. So chain 2, flip our work, moss stitch all the way up, leaving the last 2 stitches, then I'll meet you back to increase. We've made our way up with our first increase row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now how we're going to do this increase is we're going to chain 1, skip over that second to last stitch, and into the last we're all going to do an increase of 3. And that increase of 3 is actually going to be 1 single, 1 half, 1 double crochet, all into that last stitch. So like I said, we did a chain 1. We are going to skip that following stitch, which is a single crochet from our previous row. Then into the last stitch, we're going to insert with a single, same last stitch with a half, same last stitch with a double crochet. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we did our previous rows for the decrease portion of the bottom detail. So I'm going to take out my stitch marker because we don't need any more. Then we're going to count up 1, count up 2. Into that second stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Now for this increase row, we should have 2 more stitches than our previous row. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up that following stitch into the base. Just like the other side, our even number rows aren't going to have any increases or decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, moss stitch all the way down. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. We have just completed the entirety of the bottom. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row, and now from here, we're going to clean up the top of our piece and then get started on the strap. So we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, so our back seam is along the inside. Then we're going to take a look at the back. I just unfolded one of my panels. I'm now going to insert my hook into the top corner stitch of the right side because I want to show the front of my single crochet row, and I'm going to single crochet all the way down and up until I reach the other corner stitch. I'm going to pull my yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then starting with 1 single crochet into the same stitch that our chain is in, I'm going to insert with a single crochet. And from here, simply put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then once we reach our first side row, I will meet you back. We've just made our way down, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now working our way down, we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, starting with 2. So into our first available side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, then into that same top loop with a second single crochet. This is my following side row, so I'm going to find that top loop, insert with just 1. and continue on with this, making our way down until we're worked into our side row right before our back seam. So we've just single crocheted our way all the way down and we're worked into our last side row right before our back seam. Now from here, we're just going to continue on with what we did here, working our way up, but we just want to make sure we're inserting a stitch marker into this last stitch on this side of the back seam and the first stitch on the other side of the back seam so we know where our 2 middle stitches are. So just into that following side row, insert with a single crochet, insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch, along with already having a stitch marker into the last stitch on this side of our back seam. We should all have our 2 middle stitches. Then just continue on until we reach this top corner stitch, but once we reach this top corner stitch, do not do a chain up of 1 cut, because then we can work straight into the strap length together from there. So our single crochet row is complete. We have made our way all the way up to this corner. Then once we reach this corner, all we're going to do is try on our piece and simply make a chain for the length that we would like for the strap to be. Then we're also going to insert our stitch marker into the stitch where we'd like for the strap to connect with in the back. So I have went ahead and made my strap. I needed roughly 9 inches or 23 centimeters. So I went ahead and made a chain 45. Then I'd like to insert my stitch marker into the 15th stitch away from the middle stitch within the back. I am including that middle stitch. Then from here, once we have our chain, we're simply going to slip stitch it into that stitch marker stitch. So just make sure that it is not twisted. Then we're going to insert it into that stitch marker stitch, yarn over, and pull through everything on our hook, do a chain up of 1, and cut. So now that this strap is completed, we're going to just do the other chain. So insert your hook into the top corner stitch of the other cup that we have, make the same chain that we made, then slip stitch it into that following stitch marker stitch within the back. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed both of our straps. Now we're going to clean everything up and do our front tie at the same time. So we're going to start with a little prep for the front tie just so we know how long we want the chain to be. Then once we know what that length is, we're just going to go straight in with that chain, then single crochet around everything to clean it up all at the same time. So what I like to do is insert my hook into the point of one of my cups, then simply just make a chain the length that I'd like for my strap to be. And that's just so that I get a good estimate of how long it's actually going to be and how it's going to look once the piece is on. Now I went ahead and already made my chain. I wanted roughly 15 inches or 38 centimeters, so I went ahead and made a chain 75. Now once we have that prep chain completed so that we know how long we want the tie to be, I'm going to take that apart, then start with a chain, then I'm going to connect it into the front panel. So what I'm going to do is start with my chain 75 first. So now that we have our chain, all we're going to do is connect it into the point of our front panel. So making sure that my work is flipped right side out, right side up, and I'm going to be inserting my hook into my left front panel first because I want to make sure that I'm showing the front of my single crochet row. And into that first side row, I'm going to start with just 1 single crochet. Now that 1 single crochet is going to count as a stitch, but that will count as our connection as well. So just single crochet around everything. And into that same first side row, a second single crochet. Now working our way up our cups and down our cups once we get to that point, we're simply putting 2 single crochets into every side row. So finding our following side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 as well. So there's 1, same top loop, with a second, and that's it. From here, continue with 2 single crochets into every side row. Then once we reach our chain, 1 single crochet into every chain, and we're going to work our way across the top of the back with 1 single crochet into every stitch, then make our way all the way back down. Again, putting 2 single crochets into every side row. Then once we reach the corner point of this front panel, we're simply going to make the same chain that we made for this strap. So for me, 75, then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our chain and single crochet along everything, and now we are all done. Now the last thing I have to do is simply weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you'll enjoy the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all on the next one. Bye.